Hello to you. I do hope you're well. Welcome back to my teaching tips for classroom excellence. Today we are looking at one of my all-time favorite teaching tips, which is to meet and greet every single one of your students at the classroom door. Now, this is known in Doug Lemov's Teach Like a Champion as threshold, which means you should be strategically placed at your classroom door at the beginning of your lesson so that as your students arrive, you can meet, greet them, and then ensure that they are then seated in your classroom and they are getting started with your Do Now activity. So let's take a look at what Threshold is all about. And as I say, to sum it up, it means to greet every single one of your students at the door. Now, this is so important because it's about building those relationships with your students and also setting a very positive tone for your lesson. If you just think about it, if you're standing at the classroom door as your students arrive, you actually get to interact with every single student, but you also send a very clear signal that they are entering your classroom. And so they need to follow your instructions and follow your classroom rules. So it's really powerful, not just in terms of building those positive relationships, because you actually get to talk to every single student, but it's also really important because it sets that positive tone and it sends that very clear symbol that students are entering your classroom. So here's how it works. At the start of every lesson, make sure you are standing in the doorway to your classroom so that you can meet and greet every single student as they arrive. And, as I say, this means standing in the doorway and then warmly greeting each student. I like to think of it as if you were cabin crew meeting the passengers as they are boarding the plane, so you are standing at the door, greeting the passengers, or in this case, greeting the students as they arrive and enter the classroom. So it's really important that you make eye contact with every single student, that you use their name, and that you say hello to them, good morning, good afternoon. And then, with a couple of students, you might actually ask them a question as well. You might say, how are you? How's your day been? How's everything going? A short question that shows students that you are interested in them. And as I say, that allows you to start building those really positive relationships with them. Now, this is also a great opportunity to remind students of what you'd like them to do when they sit down. So again, in Teach Like a Champion, Lemov uses the Do Now, which is an activity which is displayed on the whiteboard as students arrive. So they can sit down and straight away, they can write down in their book the date, the title, and they can complete the Do Now. So when you are standing at the door, when you are greeting students, you might say, hello, welcome, how are you? And then, glance into the room so that you can see students who have already entered the room and remind them the date, title, and Do Now are on the board. So, you're not standing halfway down the corridor greeting students all the way down there. You're actually standing in your doorway so that with one glance, you can see the students who are arriving and greet them. But then with another glance, you can then look into the classroom and make sure that the students who have already sat down have already got started with the date, title, and the Do Now, which are already displayed on the whiteboard. So, we're not losing a minute of learning time because the students who have already arrived have already got started with that task you've set. And then obviously when all of the students have sat down and you've done the register, you can then review the Do Now with the entire class. But, that's a great way of ensuring that students know what they're doing from the second they have sat down into your classroom. And again, that sends that really powerful message, doesn't it? That in your classroom, you do not waste a single minute of learning time because there's always something to do, whether that is reviewing the previous lessons learning or then getting started with your learning for that day. And this is also another great chance to hand them a worksheet, a resource, or a post-it note that they are going to need for the lesson. Because again, we can often waste a few minutes of our lesson when we're distributing a worksheet or we're handing out a resource. But actually, if you can hand students that resource at the door, that saves us time, doesn't it? So, it's all about efficiency. It's about meeting students, greeting students, you're welcoming them into your classroom, you're building that relationship with them from the moment they've arrived at the door. You're setting that positive tone, you're sending that message that they're entering your classroom, but you're also saving time as well, because as I say, it is a great way to be handing them a worksheet or a resource. So, you know, you're not cabin crew checking their ticket and their passport, you're actually the teacher welcoming them and giving them a resource so that they can sit down and the lesson can get started. Now, in terms of why this is so important, the first thing I would say is that it sets a positive tone for the lesson. It creates a great culture because you are there at the door welcoming students into your room. You know, you're not sat at your desk catching up on emails. You're not halfway down the corridor finding the textbooks that you forgot that you need. You are there, you know, welcoming students, and that sends such a positive message, doesn't it? It creates, as I say, that really great culture for learning, and you know, it helps students to not only build confidence in your classroom, but also to feel welcomed into your classroom because you've spoken to them at the door. So then when you're taking answers later on in the lesson, for example, students feel that they can get involved. They feel confident to contribute because you have personally welcomed them into your classroom. So they feel welcome in that room and they feel confident to contribute. It also signals to students, as I've mentioned, that they are entering your classroom. And this is so important for behaviour management. You know, when you are in your classroom, you want to command your classroom. You are the teacher, you are the authority in the room. And so it's really important to meet students at the doorway because that literally, you know, very visibly shows them that it is your classroom. And so when they are walking into it, they know, I'm in Sir's classroom. So I know I need to meet his expectations. I need to follow his instructions. And it shows students that you do command the space, that they are entering your space. So it is absolutely brilliant for behaviour management in the same way that, you know, within a lesson, you want to make sure you are constantly moving around the entire classroom. It's important that at the start of that lesson, you are the one welcoming them into your classroom. They should not enter your classroom without interacting with you. In the same way that you would, you know, welcome a visitor to your home at the door, wouldn't you? You would meet them at the door and welcome them in. And so, you know, it's really important for behaviour management that we are sending that signal to students. And then also, and this is, you know, really, really important because remember, we are teaching classes of potentially 30 students. It's a great way of ensuring that every student feels seen by you. It shows that you take an active interest in each student and their success. It shows that you care because you're taking the time to make eye contact, to smile, to welcome them, to remember their name, and, you know, ensure that they feel ready to start the lesson. And that not only helps you to build those positive relationships, which are absolutely essential for your success as a classroom teacher, but it also leads to students feeling more confident to participate in your lesson because they feel that they are welcome in your classroom, they feel that they belong in your classroom, and, you know, they are then willing to participate in your classroom. So it's really powerful in terms of setting that tone, sending that signal, and then building those really positive relationships. So yes, that is my first top tip for classroom excellence. It is to stand in the doorway and meet and greet every single student as they arrive to your lesson, and really, really, you know, invest a few minutes in that at the start of every lesson, and I think it really will pay off for you for months and potentially years to come in terms of the relationship you then build with the individual students and with the classes as a whole. So thank you for watching. Do let me know if you apply this tip, this technique in your own classroom. Let me know how it goes for you. If there's any twist that you add to it, do let me know in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you for another teaching tip very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.